It's not a revolution like that. It's an evolution. So start small, start implementing things. And if we can demonstrate the benefit of some technology and then people could see where that would impact on them, it then starts to give confidence in that technology.
Hello and welcome to the Manufacturers Make Stride podcast. I'm your host Martin Griffiths, and today we're joined by Anthony Walker. So Anthony is a strategic manager at Liverpool John Moores University, and Anthony has over 15 years experience working with small businesses, and he's helped them to embrace innovation, adopt new technologies and grow in a fast-changing world. So Anthony's passionate about finding practical solutions to real challenges, making innovation accessible and helping businesses to succeed. So I'm excited today to hear about Anthony's story and learn from his insights on supporting businesses, driving growth and preparing for the future. So let's get right into it now. Hey Anthony, welcome. How's things going today?
Yeah, really good. Afternoon, Martin. Many thanks for having me today. Really excited to be online today.
So just before we dive into things, just tell us, how's your week gone so far?
Pretty good. It's busy as per. Best laid plans start on the Monday. All goes to pop by about 9 o'clock on Monday as different challenges come in. But yeah, really good at the moment. Lots of things going on, lots of exciting stuff. And I'm sure we'll delve into some of that.
First off, I mentioned in the intro earlier that you've kind of specialised in, you work a lot with smaller businesses. So I just wanted to dig into that a little bit, really. What is it about working with businesses, particularly the smaller ones, that inspired you to focus your career around that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a broad question, Martin, really. But I mean, I think the reason I focus on smaller businesses or SMEs, as I'll allude to them, is I think SMEs face very different challenges to perhaps larger companies, and it's well recognised that they're the lifeblood of the economy. I think locally, for instance, in Liverpool City region, 97% almost of the organisations are SMEs. And although technical SMEs face some similar challenges, they're also very different and bespoke. And for me, I really enjoy that challenge of adapting to the challenges that an SME will have in terms of timescale and drivers and that kind of thing. And I've always liked to look, as an engineer by trade, I've always liked to try to think I can look at things through the lens of an engineer and then pass on some of that. So it's in my nature to try and help a little bit. But I think ultimately, for me, SMEs are fantastic. They've got fantastic ideas. They've got fantastic people, but they're fantastically busy as well. And sometimes in order to kind of grow or get that leg up to the next stage, I think just a little bit of help sometimes needed. And I'm really passionate about sort of technology and skills being a driver to help someone grow. And that then becomes the driver for the economy. And basically, if I can help or my team can help, we try and help.
Yeah, it's definitely that stage of businesses. It's an interesting set of challenges, isn't it? You know, things can happen quickly, but as you say, there's a lot going on and there's a lot of kind of priorities to balance. So yeah, it's an interesting set of challenges, but definitely quite rewarding. This is a slightly out there, slightly left field kind of question, but you alluded to there that you were an engineer by trade. So just out of curiosity, just tell us a bit more about your start of your career. How did you start out?
Okay, I'll take it back a bit further, if I may, Martin. I think from an early age, I kind of realised I always liked, fixing things, a little bit and understanding how things worked. And I think, as my parents would no doubt testify, if I wasn't asking questions about how something worked, I was normally taking something apart or finding out for myself, normally breaking it in the process, but then realising how and why I'd broken it. And from an early age, when I was at school, I used to do some vacation work in a spring factory, and it kind of taught me a lot. It was just manual labour, dare I say, but it was seeing challenges from a shop floor. Seeing the challenges of, we've got an order to get out. It's got to be out by Thursday. Well, it's just got to be out by Thursday. It doesn't matter what we've got to do. It was seeing that from a sort of 16-year-old, as it would be doing going on to do my A-levels, of sort of getting that bit of experience and thinking, this is like really interesting. People think you're just making something, but there's all these other challenges about problem solving, independent thinking that come in. And it really interested me. So I went on then to study kind of manufacturing engineering and operations management at University of Nottingham. And then I specialised in advanced manufacturing with lasers at University of Liverpool. So as my career kind of progressed after the studies, I carried on my research at UOL after my studies and went into something called photodynamic therapy, which was really interesting, but it was more health-based. That's kind of working on different drugs that are activated by lasers to work on things like cancer cures and stuff like that. So it basically tries to this drug would adopt staying in a disease cell longer than it would be in a healthy cell. Then you activate it with a laser, and then it would only hurt, dare I say, the nasty cells. But in doing that piece of research, I kind of realized that I like to believe I was all right as a researcher, but my passion and my skill set was in advancing technology. And as I said before, I look at things through the lens of an engineer and spent most of my time then in the deepest, darkest depths of the basement at the university, in the labs where things were being done, which fascinated me, and looking at those challenges. So in all of that, we set up a brand new laser centre, which was industry focused at University of Liverpool, which our first project was supporting local industry with advanced technology. And with this advanced laser technology that people didn't know much about, it was really, really good to try and figure ways of trying to promote the benefits, not trying to sell something, but just promote the benefits of technology to people. So from an early age, I started managing projects and such like. Following my time at University of Liverpool, I moved into the private sector, developing innovation and economic growth practices in industry, particularly adopting new tech and securing around about £50 million worth of funding for SME companies. And then it led on to JMU. I was asked to join JMU, Liverpool John Moores University, to lead on industrial innovation using digital tech, which originally focused on manufacturing and advanced technology. And we set up a brand new project, which was called LCR4. That was back in 2016, of which I was one of the co-founders of. And that was a pioneering project. Because, you know, we'd all heard of this term Industry 4 or Fourth Industrial Revolution. It'd been around for a good while, but not that many people were doing so much with it, particularly for an SME. So we thought we'd have a go, and we thought we'd try and set up an innovation support project to help SMEs adopt digital tech. So that was really successful. And then that led into a suite of 3 different projects, all based on the LCR4 concept of innovation support for digital tech. And the reason we split it into 3 projects is some people are at the beginning of a digital journey and needed particular support to get going. And some people were fairly advanced, so they needed perhaps more support across the supply chain or with advanced tech. So we developed 3 new projects to deliver cutting edge solutions, and they lasted till 2022. So we've now got 6 years worth of innovation support. And our latest installment in this series of digital innovation is the Horizons project, the partnership with University of Liverpool and Edge Hill University to provide wider innovation support across all sectors and spread that learning. So in summary, really, Martin, I think that the result there is in that time, we've supported 800 SMEs in Liverpool City region. So that's great. But what did it mean? So that's 480 new or improved products, processes or services. And our independent kind of summative assessment stated the expected impact by 2028 of this kind of work is about 197 mil of GVA and around 3,000 jobs being created. And I'd just like to say that's around unlocking technology and unlocking opportunities for people. So, you know, the summary is I'm passionate about tech. I'm passionate about skills coming together to develop solutions to those unique challenges facing 21st century SMEs. And dare I say, as a native of the Liverpool area, I'm kind of passionate about supporting where I loosely call the home of manufacturing and technology. So in a roundabout way, that's where I've got to at the moment. It's that passion and that drive of the SMEs.
That's amazing. That sounds really fascinating. I would love to dig into one of those. Like, you've obviously covered a lot of ways there that you've exposed, young businesses to technology and the benefits that they've got. Do you have any good examples or case studies of how it's really impacted business?
Yeah, we do really. I mean, I suppose it's one of those things, isn't it? If you're looking at an SME, normally some of the challenges could be that it could be resource, it could be time, money, capacity, skills, risk, don't understand the technology and all of those kind of things. So probably a broad case study in the first instance is what we like to do is try and demonstrate tech to people. So, it's all very well as talking about Internet of Things as an example or AI. And we all say, the Internet of Things is here. It was coined by Kevin Ashton in the 90s. But what does this mean if we communicate? What does it mean if we use the data? So we tend to show people, and we'll use, say, a predictive maintenance example of just a proximity sensor running round, and then saying, we know every 1,000 cycles, this elastic band on this little conveyor belt will break. So if the data tells us that, we can then say, well, I'll tell you what, at 990, let's go and fix it. Let's go and fix it before it breaks. So in terms of broad examples, we try to demystify technology with demonstration. In terms of actual examples, obviously I'll leave company names out, for confidentiality, but, we've supported say companies which could be quite mature SMEs, say 60, 70 employees in the aerospace industry, who didn't have any of their CNC machines, large Mazak machines. They weren't connected. They weren't collecting any data. If you then go into their factory 4 years later after doing a knowledge transfer partnership with them, they've now got visual dashboards everywhere. Every operator's not using paper. They're using visual parts. So, that's for a mature SME. For less mature, it could be any challenges, from even just using blockchain technology to someone who's never used an ERP or a CRM or an MES. And then there's acronyms everywhere here. But for me, it's more about trying to demystify that. Say, okay, what are your goals? What do you need to get to? What are your challenges? And let's break it down. And let's break it down and showcase some of this stuff and work together to try and help you achieve them. So that's kind of what we try to do.
Yeah. So what do you think the best way for a company to do that is? Because, they're at a stage, they've got their business goals, they've got lots going on. There's many, many potential things they could do. You've mentioned there's lots of acronyms out there. There's lots of opportunities. What do you think the right way or a good way is to focus in on the key technology for them at their stage to focus on, or the key project to embark on? Because I guess it's a big commitment for them, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whenever we talk about technology, one of the first things someone's going to say is, yeah, it might be fantastic, but how much is it going to cost? And I think one of the things that we never try to lose sight on is, there has to be a return on investment. But I think the starting point for us normally is, getting to the key people within a company and then diagnosing where the kind of like barriers or their blockers are, where are their challenges? And I said before that sometimes it's quite similar challenges across different SMEs, but each one's bespoke. So we tend to do some kind of like tour, let's say with some of the, the tech people as it would be within the company or the management team, and then start to diagnose with them where the challenges are. But sometimes you don't even know where your challenges are as well. So it's kind of the tech push versus the tech pull. So we'll normally start with an initial diagnostic, and then we'll kind of say, well, come and see what we do as well to see the art of the possible. And that art of the possible isn't just about if someone thinks they need to connect something with, I'll use IoT again with IoT, because on the way to that, let's have a look at some of our smart packing systems. Let's have a look at our visual inspection. Let's have a look at the AI we're doing in health, because that triggers ideas. And before you know it, someone's saying, oh, hang on a minute, we did have a challenge 6 months ago on this and we left it on the back burner. So I think it's about trying to plan, Martin, a little bit. It's like saying, okay, well, where do you want to get to? And let's break it down. I think also the final point in that I'll say is I think a lot of companies got hung up a bit and sort of started saying, right, I've got to digitalize, right? I've been told to grow, to be in the modern world, we've got to do this, right? Can I have 4IR, please? Can I have Industry 4 in a box? It's not a revolution like that. It's an evolution. So start small. Start implementing things. And if we can demonstrate the benefit of some technology and then people could see where that would impact on them, and then we'd run a small pilot with them at no cost sort of thing, it then starts to give confidence in that technology.
Yeah, it's kind of critical for them to be able to, I guess this is a big benefit you have with the demonstrators of someone seeing something and being able to visualize, oh yeah, I can see now how that would impact or how that would resolve this kind of challenge that we had. What would you say the most rewarding part of helping businesses with implementing these new ideas or technology is?
Yeah, it's all really rewarding to be honest. It's what gets us out of bed. We certainly didn't choose this career path for necessarily the financial packages. But I suppose it's the recognition really in terms of, by recognition, it's not, I don't mean a pat on the back. It's that recognition where, a company will turn around sometimes and use that quote or something, says, look, we've got to where we are now. We've opened up a new market, or we've survived and we couldn't have done it without you. But it's not the recognition. It's seeing the business thrive. Really, it's seeing someone embrace some technology or skills. And, often, dare I say, in Liverpool City region, particularly where we're focused, you find there's a lot of second or third generation companies that have got amazing companies. They've been built up by mum and dad or family, and they've got so far and they've been amazing, but things are moving quickly and they kind of know they've got to change, but they're not always sure where to start. So seeing that sustainable growth, taking on real advice, implementing it is really important. But I think also a really rewarding part for me is developing industry academic partnerships that wouldn't have happened otherwise, because Industry can often speak one language and our academics can speak another language, but the synergy between the two is amazing when you can get them together. So actually seeing a sustainable partnership and then seeing knowledge transferred out and then being exploited and being used is really, really, really rewarding. And I think the final one I'll sort of say is, seeing each company grow, and you've had a small part to play and that's rewarding, but seeing the region then grow and become a hub of digital activity and be recognized as actually, there's something really good happening in this region is really good. We're recognized here for football, for music, they're good traditions, but actually this technology and this drive of SMEs and these companies that are really starting to lead on technology and, lead in supply chains, that's massively rewarding for me as well.
Yeah, that's when you can see there's some momentum going and things are really starting to move. That sounds good. There's a couple of things I'd like to pick up on. You mentioned or dig into, you mentioned about the kind of the collaboration between academics and businesses. And then you also mentioned a little bit earlier that a project that you just started to work on is a Horizon project. So I don't know, maybe could you just dig into, explain a little bit more about that project and some of those aspects?
Yeah, certainly. Well, Horizons, as I say, is born out of sort of the learning of LCR4, which was our first innovation support project. And this is now the 5th iteration, really. But I think it's really important to state, Martin, early on is we don't deliver the same thing. It's evolved because it's industry demand led each time. The tech's moving quickly as well. And the challenges that people face move differently. So we designed this project with the combined authority to develop innovation support. And as I say, what we did is we brought together the University of Liverpool, Liverpool John Moores and Edge Hill, which is the three sort of main anchor institute of knowledge, as it would be within the academic base, brought them together so that we can try then and use the combined knowledge across all those partners to solve those challenges that SMEs are facing. The difference, what we've got in Horizons to our previous incumbents a little bit, is not only just that we've evolved the innovation service in terms of developing partnerships and creating the right mechanisms and doing testing, validation, feasibility studies, showcasing tech, all of that, but we also work across all sectors now. So we're a bit sector agnostic, which is really exciting for us, because what we then do see is there's learning, let's say, from manufacturing in aerospace to manufacturing in pharma to even professional services. And that B2B and that bringing people together is really important as well. So one of the things that we've done a little bit differently in Horizons as well is use what we've called accelerator partners. And this is massively important to us. So this is companies in industry or industry at the moment who have got tech solutions. So we're not trying to reinvent something. We're trying to say, if someone's got a challenge, do you know what? There's someone out there doing something. Yes, I could develop something back at the uni for you, but there's someone who's got something for you. And bringing those partnerships together, that's really helped us, because I think people have seen that even though we tell them it's completely transparent innovation support that we're giving them. There's no hidden agenda. We're not a team of consultants, dare I say, and there's nothing wrong with that in the slightest, but it's a team of technical specialists, who are trying to support the drive. So that's kind of what we are. I mean, we're running till March 2025 with Horizons. And obviously, given changes in the budget and such, like the recent autumn statement, we're looking at continuing that and then evolving that service, over the future years to really try and embed innovation within our SMEs.
We're going to shift here to a section that we call a Toolbox tips, to just give listeners away some tips that they can use in their own kind of daily work, daily practices maybe. So the quick questions don't have to be short answers. It's up to you. What do you think that one way businesses can use technology to improve the way they work day to day?
I'd say data is key. Is where I'd start. I'd say data is key. So how can you improve your day-to-day work? Data, right? And then depending on where you are on your sort of level of data, collect that data, format that data, use that data. But the key for me is use it to make more informed decisions, increase your productivity, open up new markets, improve your skill base, ultimately be more efficient and unlock the potential of that data. There will be data around, whether it's collected or not collected. And all of a sudden, once we start analysing and utilising and visualising that data, we find ways of being more efficient. So I think that's one way that people can start to use tech to improve how they can work day to day.
So do you say data there because you think, and it's influencing decision making, because so are you saying there that if you don't do that, you're kind of reliant on kind of opinions, guesses, an idea of which way the wind's blowing to make those decisions rather than, solid data and a picture of reality, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit, really. I mean, I suppose that the angle I'm coming from that is a lot of the companies that we have dealt with previously. I'll give an example, if I may. So someone who's say manufacturing food and drink or something, and it will be, there's a particular fermentation within that. And we'll be going on and looking at this process with them, and they'll be and we'll say, well, when's that ready? And they'll have a look. And it's like, it's nearly ready. And there's a real skill set in that, as it would be. That could be a brewery or a bakery or wherever it would be. And it's ready when it's ready, but that knowledge exists within someone. So one of the things we try to do then is say, well, let's put some non-invasive sensors on it. Let's monitor pH levels or temperature or ambience or wherever it would be, which will lead me on to another topic in a second, if I may. And then we can start to say, well, we can accurately measure now when that's ready. So what does that mean? It means it increases your yield. At the end of the day, it reduces your waste, increases your yield, improves your performance. So that's your bottom line. It has an impact on your ROI. So then people will get concerned. Well, does that replace the person with that knowledge? Absolutely not. That person with that knowledge upskills and then starts to do something more added value to the business, in terms of what they can actually give rather than monitoring this machine or something. And that leads us normally onto one of the big drivers at the moment for people is data around, let's say, electricity or energy bills. Everyone's felt the pinch. Every company, and particularly SMEs. We worked with a 5th generation company just a year or so ago, fantastic company, who were literally saying, we've probably got about 7 months left. We can't afford, to keep going. The rise in the bills is like, okay, let's just make a start. Let's not panic. Let's start monitoring your energy a little bit. Okay. There are obvious things people could do. We're all aware of that with our carbon footprint, like turning off lights. But the example I'll go back to is the bakery. It's things like, well, actually, you can plan your process better. You could turn your freezer off for 2 hours overnight without spoiling food. You can utilize 1, not 3 of your freezers. You can use one. So we collect that data. We collect that data over a week, over a month, over a year. And it doesn't sound much when you start to say those savings by implementing some of the suggestions that we'd said without spoiling any of their product, in fact, improving the product. You're starting to save £50 per week. Doesn't sound a lot to begin with, but that adds up over the year. And then when you then start to implement other things, dare I say, we haven't even started doing anything yet. We're only monitoring your usage. So that's kind of where I'm coming from when I'm talking about data.
Okay. So I think you've kind of got into that if your number one recommendation was to start collecting that data, the next step is to kind of take that step back, do some analysis of that, and then decide what are the kind of strategic things we can do or actionable things we can do to make some improvements based off that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I was coming from. The phrase I constantly use is, the use of data to make a more informed decision. It's no use collecting it or wherever it would be if it just sits there. It's got to be utilized, and that could often be on some kind of dashboard or wherever it would be, which gives you a glimpse. It could be, if you're in manufacturing, it could be sort of some warning lights for your predictive maintenance, because you've collected that data, which again is all leading to increased productivity, less downtime, reduced waste, and at the end of it, an increase in your OEE. If your overall equipment efficiency goes up, your yields will go up. So it's about, I think, the data in the right format, collecting that data, visualizing that data, but making sure it's useful. That's the absolute key. And that's where we sometimes come in, to sort of say, well, okay, you've got all of this now, but what does it mean? Once we analyze it, what does it mean? And I think the exciting part for me, without jumping too far ahead, is how can we use AI then to start to analyze that data, which frees up even more time? And that's quite an exciting time at the moment.
Okay. We'll come back to that in a second, because I would like to dig into that. I'd like to get your opinion on that. Before we get there though, so say your business has, started tracking some of this data, taking some actions and doing some things about it. Do you think that's then something that they should be telling their customers about? Do you think there's any potential benefits in it for their customers of what they're doing when they embark on projects like this?
Yeah, I think so. We'd like to think so. I mean, I think one of the things that's come really clear to us at the moment is, I touched a tiny bit on it before, it sounds like a history lesson here, is we classify our companies by SIC codes, and that's fine. But a SIC code, in my opinion, doesn't mean anything. I won't go too controversial into it, but it's a one-line classification of what a business does. What I'm much more interested in is tech-based clusters. So, particularly in different pockets of areas within our city region, you might have an aerospace company, which is next to an automotive, which is next to a pharma company, which is, do you know what? They have got the same problem right across their lines. And one of the best ways that they can kind of learn and grow is with the best practice from one another without that competition a little bit. And we've seen that a lot recently, and it's been really, really beneficial. But I think the second point to that is I don't think we can hide the fact that there'll be legislation that's driving us in supply chains in a transition to net zero. And I know that's on a slightly different angle, but the way I always look at it is everyone always talks about carbon assessments and such like, and they're massively important, but digital tech is an enabling tech. So when we are starting to implement or use data and make these more informed decisions, I think it's giving you a head start, dare I say, within your supply chain to take a lead and make those small improvements towards the goals before legislation starts to drive us that way. There are a number of companies, and I think there's no harm in me saying at all, I think within Scottish Power's supply chain at the moment, you have to show that you're transitioning towards net zero. So, a lot of companies will say, how do I show my scope 1, scope 2, scope 3? I don't even know what scope 1, 2, and 3 are. And we say, okay, we've got these tools. We've got tools to then start to say, here's how you're being more carbon efficient. Here's how you can monitor your carbon efficiency. That data, that analysis then gives you that start point, that benchmark, and then we can make those small improvements.
Yeah, I think not just in B2B, in B2C as well. Yeah. I think a lot of consumers are becoming more concerned. It's not always about price, and just quality now. It's, what that's becoming an influence as well for some people. All right, let's just explore AI then, maybe slightly briefly, because there's potentially a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
What's your opinion? It's in a lot of places now. Some places more proven than others where it's more experimental. Mm-hmm. In 2024, going into 2025, what do you think the state is of AI is? What aspects of it do you think they should be exploring to keep up in the next year or so?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really big question, isn't it? It's one that's out there from the highest level within the UK right down to SMEs. And I think my starting point with AI is kind of, it's here to stay, and it's kind of here. And I know there's a nervousness around it, but my approach to it is to look at it from a tool, a little bit like the data that we can use, which can then help us add more value. And the example I'll give a little bit would be if you look at, say, Copilot or ChatGPT as two examples of fairly well-known AI, we can ask Copilot to sort of say, I'd like a wiring diagram and I'd like the code to program, I've got a resistor, I've got this here, I've got that, and it will generate the code for me, right? And it will generate the code, it will generate it accurately within probably about 10 seconds. Now, a programmer, it might have taken 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. We're not replacing the coding person, the programmer. What we're waiting for there is the added value part of the code at the very end, as it would be, which can be done by the expert. So it's just an example of where AI can add value, that you're taking away perhaps some of the menial tasks, a bit like we did with robotics previously when everyone got worried about robots taking the jobs. And, we talk about, well, don't ask yourself why, a robot's doing your job. Ask yourself why you're doing a job a robot could do, so you free up your time. And I think we need to kind of embrace AI a little bit there. And if I may just give a quick analogy and just bring it just to your education for a second, because I think it's very relevant, is it's a challenge that we face at the university because AI is getting, to articulate it, cleverer. As it would be. So rather than us try to say to students who are learning and we're trying to generate the next workforce of the future with the right skills, we're not sort of saying don't use AI. We're saying use AI, embrace it, tell us where it's being used, and then tell us how you have done something on top of that, as it would be. And it's a really interesting way of sort of trying to look at that AI element of saying, let's not try and keep it at arm's length and be scared of it. Let's embrace it, and then let's try and find a way to make it useful. So from a very personal point of view, one of the things that I'm trying to do at the university is demonstrate AI in numerous ways in different scenarios so that people can start to see that benefit and then start to see that it's actually a good way of utilizing data, again, making some informed decisions and then allowing the user to make an even more informed decision and add more value at the end.
Yeah, so that kind of bottom up way, those kind of most menial tasks. I suppose with data, a good example might be like cleaning up some cleaning up of a data set before doing some like interpretation of it. Those type of tasks. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Let's have a slight change of tack to section called the hot seat. I'm going to ask you for some questions and just looking really for a quick answer. The first thing that comes to mind. What does your perfect weekend day off look like?
Perfect weekend day off. It's really simple, given this Saturday it's going to come on. Perfect weekend day off is going to the football and actually seeing my team win as an Everton fan, which doesn't happen very much. And then hopefully enjoying a Guinness or two after that with some family and friends, and then a nice meal.
One word would you use to describe the future of small businesses? It can be a few words if you want.
Exciting. I think there's opportunities, but excitement.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why people are driven to start small businesses, a combination of the challenges and the excitement in it. Absolutely. What's your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
It's normally with family and friends, as it would be. It's relaxing, letting the day be what it would be, which will often involve a really nice cold 5-degree glass of Chablis.
Sustainability or innovation? If you have to choose one, what would you choose?
Ooh, okay, good question. Innovation because it leads to sustainability.
Yeah, good answer. Yeah, absolutely. What do you think the most underrated skill is for a leader?
Ability to listen. I'd say to lead and lead well. I think you kind of got to be fairly humble with it as well. But I would say the ability to listen is really, really important, because the more you're leading, the more decisions you've got to make, and the more good people you've got around you, the easier it is to make a decision. You're
obviously, very up to date on technologies, on trends. Have you got a favorite source of information that you go to keep up to date? A favorite book, a favorite news site, a podcast, anything? How do you keep up to date?
Yeah, it's difficult. I think the main way I keep up to date, I suppose, is I'm lucky enough to have in the faculty I work in, which is health, innovation, technology and science. There's 750 academics and researchers sat behind me, as it would be, all working on cutting edge solutions, dare I say, on research. So one cracking way of keeping up to date is to speak to my academic colleagues who are busy working on new tech. A lot of that tech will fail, but it doesn't matter because it keeps you abreast. I also, when I've built my teams, we have specialists within my team around collaboration, and they are constantly sort of out talking to leading players in industry. But it's not quite an answer to your question, but a really interesting point is also kind of, dare I say, some historical sci-fi fiction as well. I was thinking about this. I was talking to a friend just recently about sort of Michael Crichton books back in the day, as it would be. Michael Crichton famously was the author of Jurassic Park and such like. But as an author, he was always adopting brand new technology into that. I think one of those books, Prey, was nanotechnology. Jurassic Park was the use of DNA. Congo was the use of AI for animals. And it's always interesting to see some. That was before any of these tech became real public knowledge. So there's loads of different sources, I think, Martin. But I'm lucky with the environment I work in that I've got an incredible amount of knowledge base sat behind me, which I can sort of just profess to summarize in a few words. And, and it makes it sound like I know everything that I'm talking about.
Well, it's a good skill to be able to filter all that, because that must be a lot of information that you're able to filter out and see the vision of the future. Yeah, it's interesting.
If you want to do something, do it. And the reason I say that is that I was lucky enough to have, when I first started one of my first jobs, I had a professor who was about to retire. I said, if you want to do something, do it. He said, because if it fails, it doesn't matter. And I said, if it doesn't fail, we can deal with the repercussions if it's successful, as it would be. So it was a really good bit of advice, without being too gung-ho and too risky, dare I say. Sometimes you've got to take a risk, but I keep that advice with me. If you think it's the right thing to do it, have a go. Don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah, if you're not making any mistakes or failures, you're not innovating enough, basically. Yeah. Just coming to the end of this section now, but if you could solve one problem for small businesses today, what would it be?
Ooh, solve one business. I think broadly across all of them would be to help people to, dare I say, plan, communicate, listen, and work together. I'd love to see that kind of thing, Rory, because they're things that everyone can improve on, no matter what state that you're in, wherever part of your business you're in, I'd say that's what I would be. It's that old phrase of fail to prepare or prepare to fail again. So, I'd like to look at it from a generic point of view of plan, communicate, listen, and then action going forward.
Yeah, amazing. That's great. Thanks. Okay, really appreciate the time with us today. Just before you go, a couple of parts of this question. What do you think is what businesses, maybe in the Liverpool City region, what should they do if they're looking to embrace innovation and prepared for future growth? What do you think they should be doing now or in the next 12 months?
One of the things I'd start with is sort of saying, don't get discouraged. Don't get sort of blanketed by all of this tech that's out there, as it would be. So certainly don't get discouraged or overwhelmed with it. Be prepared to take a risk, as we said, no such thing as failure, and try and think differently and embrace the change that's coming. So in terms of trying to turn that into an actionable advice or what it would be is, I'd say set a goal. What do you want to achieve? In a perfect world, where would you like to be in a year? What do you think you need to get there? What's the time frame? And then seek out the support to help, and don't be afraid to talk to other people who've got similar challenges. And I would like, I suppose, to say, if you're a local company particularly, or any company anywhere, come and talk to us, as well. It would be a strong piece of advice to say, if we can help, we'll help. If we can't help, we won't try, but we normally know someone who can. So that's where I'd come from, I think, in terms of what people can do.
So where do they find you or your team? How do they find out more about Horizons if people want to explore that some more?
Absolutely. Starting point would be our website, horizons.uk, where there's 60, 70 case studies on there. It also got the links previously to LCR4. So you can see how some businesses have benefited from engaging and using tech, and you see how they're using new knowledge and innovation to drive their business forward. We're based in the centre of Liverpool at John Moores University. Our colleagues, Edge Hill and University of Liverpool, are just round the corner. Our doors are always open, as it would be. We always say it's an open door environment. Come and talk to myself, my team, come and see our demonstrations, come and have a chat about what your challenges are, see what we do. We'd love to see what people do, and let's see where that conversation takes us.
Oh, that sounds a really good thing for people to do. Thank you for that, Anthony. That was a great way to wrap up today's episode. Really appreciate the time to sharing your expertise with us to say, thank you very much for joining us.
No, very welcome, Martin. I've really enjoyed it.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us. And if you found this episode valuable, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Let us know your thoughts and join in the conversation, whether that's on YouTube, Spotify, or LinkedIn. Thanks a lot for listening to the latest episode of the Manufacturers Make Stride podcast, and I'll see you next time.